So it was chunked into lessons, and then they would watch a video, and then the teacher would go over specific points, and then they would take notes based off of that specific age. And then at the end of the lesson, they had to make a summary. And they also went over transition words in it, and so they had to write a summary, basically about like how the horse ages using those transition words and everything that they learned in the videos using their notes. And then the second one, it was actually a really cool assignment. I had never seen it or done it, but it was the tiny homes
Mm-hmm.
assignment, where basically students had to just create these tiny homes, but they were given like not necessarily problems unless you find members staying with you a problem, but like they had challenges that they had to like kind of design the house around. Like, okay, well, what if your sister moves in with you? Now you have to have two bedrooms. How much space do you want? Stuff like that. Um, and so you have questions
Mm-hmm.
for
Yep.
me?
Um, but I Okay, so what differences did you notice between the two lessons in terms of how much students had to think?
So the first one was really a lot of like memorization and digesting information. There's not all horses are going to age the same, basically. So, they were learning and digesting all of that, and like the taking the notes and then the writing a summary. So it was very much like, here's this information that you need to know. Now go process it and learn it. The second lesson plan was more creative and using critical thinking. So, there's not a lot of critical thinking in how does this horse age based off the video that I just watched, where I just learned how it ages.
Mhm.
But there is critical thinking in, they had to sit down in groups, and they would basically like interview an individual about what their need to knows are. And so they were like, how many square feet do you want? Do you want a garden? What kind of windows do you like? And so each child got that answer, but then they all had to go and design their own house. So
Right.
there was a lot of creativity and a lot of critical thinking that went on. And that was, I feel like, the biggest difference. Um, yeah.
So in the first one, they saw the video,
Mhm.
they then took that information and answered questions and things. So,
Mhm.
and then the second one, they were doing most of the critical thinking themselves. So where in each lesson, especially that first one, did the students have opportunities to think, make decisions, or solve problems rather than just follow directions?
So the first one was the summary using like a list of the transition words that they had just gone over. So they learned how to use the transition words, and they learned the information of how the horse ages, and then they had to create a summary of the aging process with those transition words. So there was still a little bit of like creative freedom in figuring out how to take your personal notes
Mhm.
and the information that you know in writing. But the second one, they were um, they had a list of questions that they had to ask, and then the rest of the assignment, it was up to them to design, like, do I want green walls? What's the building going to be made from?
Mhm.
um, and so it was cool to kind of like, in the video that you watch, they go through and they kind of explain, like, you've got these young kids being like, I put a window here because the sun's going to be right here. And so all of them were different, and that was cool.
Right. Um, what teacher actions in the videos most strongly supported or limited student thinking?
I feel like in the first one, student thinking was limited because I think it was a great strategy for, like, we only have an hour, you have to know this information. Let's get through this quick. Because, they watched the video, and then the teacher then went over with the information that they learned in that video. They took the notes and they wrote their summary. But there was no connection to like real world just because of the pace, and so they weren't able to.
I had just written that relevant to their life.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Mhm.
And so because they didn't have the chance to be like, when have you seen a baby horse,
Mhm.
and or like make any connections to their lives. And then in the second one, I really loved because it gave them more loose instructions, and they were able to take things that they personally liked or disliked, and they were able to really create their own home while also having to critical think about, like, okay, well, I have a sister, she needs a room too. And so that did give them the personal connections.
Um, I- it's not one of the questions on your form, but I'm going to
Mhm.
ask it anyway because that's who I am. Um, I like so much having the kids be able to take those, like the second lesson, being able to like come up with their own ideas and it makes sense to them. But I also know because I have ADHD and a lot of the kids that I work with have ADHD, I like to have not so open-ended information. Like I like to make sure like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing correctly. So I like
Mhm.
to have like an exemplar to look at and say, okay, I'm doing things right. I'm
Mhm.
good, like if we're in a meeting or something, saying, okay, this is what I think, and here's my ideas. But when I'm in a class, I start to panic, and my students in class start to panic when they don't know exactly what's expected or that,
Mhm.
well, but what if I say something wrong? So
Mhm.
I think just keep in mind that it, both are good lessons.
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
have to get information. You have to have them understand the standards and you have to give them information. So it's not that one is necessarily better for providing information. It is so good to watch the kids think and have it
Mhm.
relate to their lives. It makes much more sense to them. But for some of our kids, there's that.
Yeah.
But I can't do this. I can't even start because I don't know what
Right.
perfection looks like.
Right. And the routines, I feel like a lot of the kids that we work with have to have those routines in the class of like, we're going to go over this and then I'm going to do this and then we're going to do the next thing. And the creative thinking, just like giving them an assignment and going like, okay, figure it out. That doesn't really give them that like structure.
Right.
Um, which is how I would do all of my assignments still today. I'm like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this.
Hmm.
And if I don't have that, I absolutely won't do it.
Yeah.
So,
So being able to provide that to kids,
mhm.
like that open where they're thinking, but also providing the structure so they feel safe to do that.
Yeah.
And that's not easy.
Mm.
Um, so we're supposed to talk about reinforcement and refinement.
Yes.
So let's talk about like one of the things it wants to talk about is your understanding of cognitive development.
Yeah.
So, and you talked about like the fact that, and I think it's one of the things we talk about so much, but we don't do well as teachers, was being relevant to students' lives.
Mhm.
And I think that you showed a strong understanding for that. Like this was so much better because the kids can relate and they can be like, oh, I put a window here, and you can also see how they're thinking.
Mhm.
So I think that was really great, and I think that understanding that gives you a big foot step up because you're able to be like, okay, I know that the kids need to really understand it. They need to relate to it.
Yeah.
And I think just the other thing, and it's not that it was weak by any means, but just something that as a new teacher,
Yeah.
like understanding these assignments all look so great and grand and like yeah, this is how I want my classroom to run and it is how we want our classroom to run, but what are the what are the things that are going to be barriers for some of the kids?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just make sure you're looking at what are some of the barriers for the kids that we don't really think about because we're like, oh, they'll love it because they get to design this or they get to,
Hmm.
but like I said, like setting up so that there's a good structure or there's some type of exemplar or some way that they
Hmm.
can grasp onto something solid and not just everything be abstract.
Yeah. That's kind of what I have because I think I'm supposed to talk about it too. I feel like I do have a strength in knowing the differences between like the like memorizing and being able to recognize it in
Mhm.
the assignment, like recognizing when they're needing to memorize and when they're going to be like more creative and thinking critically. But I feel like something that um, I'd be weaker at, because like obviously even you picked up on is like I favor critical thinking, and not every student is going to respond well to that. And so creating assignments that kind of bring in both together,
Yeah.
I feel like would be my like weak point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
we all have weaknesses. So always remember that when you're like, oh gosh, I need to do this. Like I, I'm getting ready to go into my 24th year and there's a whole lot of things I need to do better. So, if we think we've mastered it all, it's probably about time for us to retire.
that's funny. I have two questions for you.
Okay.
And that first one would be, do you have a favorite like tactic to memorize information? So like mine all throughout college was, what's it called? I
Mnemonics.
would create, yeah, mnemonics,
Mhm.
where
Yeah,
I would
that
make my
that's how I memorize everything. Um,
hmm
and again, it could be because of my ADHD, but um, no matter what I'm doing, I will memorize it by putting a sentence together that makes no sense but has the first
Well, it's
letter.
got to be simple.
Yeah, I do grocery lists that way. I do like I don't write them down because I'll forget the paper either at home or I'm just like, you know, what do I need? Paper towels and pizza. And then I'll be like, poor people. That's what I don't know. It's
Oh,
crazy, but mnemonics is what I use
yeah,
all the time in
yeah,
everything that I do.
yeah. That's one of my favorites. Except I always hated when they gave me one.
Yeah.
Like when in math, like what is it, PIMDAS, when they would
Yeah.
like
PEDMOS.
please excuse my adherence,
Right.
I'd be like, no, I'm not.
PEMDAS,
I
yeah.
am not memorizing somebody else's.
Yeah. I'm making up my own.
Mhm.
And it might be inappropriate, but I'm going to make it up and I'll remember it.
And it's not going to go together at all. It's just going to be a bunch of words.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what works for me. Um, and then my second one would be, when it's appropriate, how do you encourage more critical thinking, especially in a classroom that kind of requires a little bit more structure, especially in assignments?
Mhm. So the best way that I have found to encourage it, especially for the kid, like we've got some kids who are just doing it. They're just doing it.
Mhm.
But for a lot of the kids that are like myself or need that structure, is just doing the scaffolding. So
Gotcha.
maybe I ask them a question that gets them on the right track.
Gotcha.
So I come down further so that I can start their thinking and then they go from there. But just scaffolding to build. And if they can't go from there, then maybe I provide a step a little bit lower to help
Mhm.
them up. But I'll
Yeah.
start where I think they are. If I need to take another step, then I'll take another step down. But I'll start where I think they're at and then build from there. But try not to give them the answer directly outright, but let's start down here and build your critical thinking that way. And then what I end up doing is saying, like the next time we do an assignment like that, they'll be like, "Hey, Miss Stevenson, what about this?" And I'll be like, "What do you think I'm going to ask you? What
hmm
did I ask you the last time? Like if
Yeah.
it's something on a similar basis." And they'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're going to say this." And I'll be like, "Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to say. So what's the
Mhm.
answer to that?" And
Yeah.
help them start thinking for themselves and not always have to provide that scaffold.
Yeah. Do you think any of them tried to use that against you in a way? Weaponize it?
Ever. Not my sweet kid. Kids
Uh,
will always, and it's who they are. They're just kids. They will always get as much help as they can get.
I mean, I'm that way too. I'm like, oh, is this how you vacuum? Is
Hmm?
this
Yeah,
how
I
you
don't
want
know
me
how to vacuum.
to
The dishes have to go in the dishwasher. What? Yeah. So that's why, like I said, when I scaffold, I'll ask a question, but it'll be a question that I'm hoping I can
do? Yeah.
do throughout, the whole semester. And then when we're doing that assignment again, and they're like, "Miss Stevenson, I still don't know what to do." I'll be like, what am I going to ask you?
Yeah.
Instead of just asking it again,
hmm
because then they get prompt dependent. Instead of just asking it again, I'm going to be like, what do you think? I don't know. Well, think about it and I'll come back to you. Like giving them lots of wait time
Yeah.
and putting that back on them.